So we are reading an excerpt from Adam Smith, 1776, The Wealth of Nations, or The Causes of Wealth of Nations, but it's known as The Wealth of Nations, and it's an incredibly important book in economics. Not a person who's really that well read in economics, but I can say that it's had tremendous influence. And one of the interesting things about economists in those days is that they thought of themselves as philosophers as well. So what we have here is a philosophical description of what a human being is. And the idea is that the human being is a trading creature by nature. It is this astounding sort of definition almost of human beings as the animal that trades, that barters trucks, exchanges, trades with others to fulfill its needs. Um, he says in almost every other race of animals, each individual, when it has grown up to maturity, is entirely independent and in its natural state has occasion for the assistance of no other living creature. That's quite true. Certainly, we think of animals that hunt in packs, that live in prides, but he's trying to make a point here that when we look at the animal world, excluding human beings, what we find is that there's a kind of a self sufficiency, that the animal is able to take care of its needs by itself as an individual, but that this is not true of human beings. He says, but man, and by certainly he means human being by man, but man has almost constant occasion for the help of his brethren, for the help from other human beings. And it is in vain for him to expect it from their benevolence only. That is, human beings have a wide range of needs, wider than any other animal. And we need other people to help us to supply that wide range of needs. And as he says, it would be in vain for us to expect it from their benevolence, from their goodwill, from their love of us only. He will be more likely to prevail if he can interest their self love in his favor, which is all sorts of assumptions there about what human beings are and what they're like. The base principle, the basic principle that we are needy creatures that stand in need of assistance to fulfill our needs. But then the idea that the best way to get that assistance from others is to interest their self-love in our favor. That is, essentially, we're selfish creatures. We're interested in ourselves, and we have our own needs and wants that we are almost exclusively attentive to. And so that if you're dealing with people like yourself, it's fundamentally selfish, and you need their help, calling upon their benevolence is not going to get you very far. But if you can somehow interest their self-love in your favor, then you can get them to supply what you need. But what does that mean? How do you interest their self-love in your favor? He says he will be more likely to prevail if he can interest their self-love in his favor and show them that it is for their own advantage to do for him what he requires of them. So how do you do that? How do you get people to supply you with what you need by thinking that it's to their advantage to do that? Whoever offers to another a bargain of any kind proposes to do this. Give me that which I want, and you shall have this which you want, is the meaning of every such offer. And it is in this manner that we obtain from one another the far greater part of those good offices which we stand in need of. It's by trade. That is, how do we get other people to believe that it is in their interest to supply us with what we want? By trading with them and giving them in exchange what they want. If I really want a Coke, drinking a Coke, and I'll have one, but I have two sandwiches, and I notice that somebody has a 6-pack of Cokes, I may offer them a sandwich. If they're hungry, they'll want a sandwich and perhaps be willing to give up one of their Cokes so I can drink it. That's sort of basic thing is what he's talking about. A trade. an exchange. This is how we live. We need others to help us, but if we were to simply ask them to help us and to say, "Can you please help me? I want this, this, and this," they'll laugh in our face, probably. We have to offer them something that they want in exchange for getting what we want. So that this is a whole theory of human nature, how we supply our needs, what kind of creatures we are, essentially selfish. But it also becomes a theory of society. This is how an economy works. Everybody basically being selfish, but supplying others with what they need. Um, and that's because people get what they need by supplying others with what the others need, and vice versa. And this is how a market society works. And one of the more important ideas here is that this general prosperity, or everyone getting what they want in this idealized picture of society, to some degree idealized, none of it relies upon altruism, love, benevolence. It's almost like a trick that everybody is pursuing their own self interest, but in so pursuing is forced to actually serve the interests of others. Sometimes the idea is sometimes called the invisible hand. That is, we're all pursuing our own selfish interests, but led as if by an invisible hand, we end up providing for others as well. So, yes, the last line is very famous. Um, it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages. So it's really, I would say, whether you agree with it or not, I mean, ideologically, it's very individualistic. It believes that human beings are selfish. It believes that the only way to really achieve prosperity is to let people pursue their own interests, their own selfish interests. There's all sorts of room for disagreement here, but it is a brilliant idea, nonetheless. This idea that human beings, as needy creatures, are forced to seek help from other human beings in providing for those needs. And that the best way to do it, really the only way to do it, is to engage in trade and appeal to the self interest of others in getting what we want. It is I think, absolutely stunning, brilliant idea. Whether it's ultimately right or whether it's the way to found a society, I don't know. But what an important idea in human history.